Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Leadership Bites, our podcast that elevates the journey of women leaders across industries and cultures. And today I am so pleased to welcome Megan Jaffer, a woman I truly admire who has been a friend for over a decade now, I think, Megan, since we met as colleagues working for an association. So, Megan is the co founder of Iron Butterfly Media, and it's an enterprise. I'm just going to call it that, with a successful podcast. They've got lots of other media projects happening, and they also have a foundation that focuses on sharing, honoring, and celebrating the voices and the stories of women. So we are very much in alignment with Iron Butterfly Media in terms of their mission and their vision. And I'm so excited to welcome you today, Megan. Thanks for joining us.
Cam, I am beyond thrilled to be here. If your listeners could see me, I'm smiling ear to ear. I just love you to death. I'm so happy you're doing this because there's no better person to do a podcast on leadership than you. And I'm just honored and thrilled to be your first guest.
Yes, yes, yes. So thank you. Thank you. I'm happy. I'm so happy to have you. I've been excitedly watching your journey as since you started Iron Butterfly. And leadership is something that I really kind of, for me, it was something that I always wanted to do, but I envisioned it initially as a consultancy, right? My organization as a consultancy and doing some work for nonprofits and things like that. And then COVID happened, right? And I think I want you to get into your story, but I know for me it shifted things, and I began to see more opportunities, more gaps, more ways to spread joy, to share inspiration, and I still want to do that in different ways. But this podcast has been something that has been a long held dream, and so I've been excited to watch your journey, to learn from your journey, and now to welcome you as my first guest. So I'm super excited. Now, on that note, I think that gives us a perfect leeway into the first thing I want to talk about with you. You began your career working in nonprofit organizations. You're now the co founder of this thriving podcast and media organization. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, why and how did you decide to make this pivot?
So I've had a couple pivots in my life, and I kind of now can really appreciate and love pivots. And I try to, when I talk to other young men and women, I try to say embrace them, even though sometimes it's hard because I found the beauty is in the pivot. Um, but I had gone to school, undergrad and graduate school in international relations. I focused on Korean studies because I thought I wanted to work in the intelligence community. And I wanted to work for government specifically. And when I graduated, I had applied to all the three-letter organizations that most people know, like CIA, NSA, NGA, all those three-letter, government intelligence organizations. But the timing of that was kind of bad timing. There was kind of a government shutdown at the time, and people weren't hiring, and it was difficult. And so I knew I had to be. I was living in Chicago at the time, and I knew I had to be in DC to really make things happen. So I picked up and I moved here with no job. Um, and I had one small, I needed to pay the bills because I don't know how many people know this who are outside of our community, but it takes a while to get a government job. The processing could take up to a year and a half. So I needed to pay my rent. I needed to eat. So, I had a small kind of temporary job for about 9 months when I first moved here. But then, DC is full of associations, and I got my first kind of full time job at an association is where I met you. Um, and I did that. I actually worked in association management for 4 or 5 years when I first got to DC because it took quite a while for me to break into the intelligence community. And back then I thought, oh my gosh, you think in your head you're wasting your time because you're not doing what you love. I had a goal to work in government, and I'm like, what am I doing? And I was finally kind of given this amazing opportunity to work for. So at nighttime, I was working, at these nonprofits. At nighttime, I would go to all the intelligence community industry events, and I started volunteering at one of the nonprofits that support the intelligence community. And the joke is, I had been working at all these nonprofits that had to do with pharmaceutical scientists, that had to do with, corporate counsel. I worked at the Navy League. And at nighttime, I was going to the intelligence community events, and I stumbled upon this organization called the Intelligence and National Security Alliance, which is a nonprofit that caters to the intelligence community. And I thought I knew just about everything about nonprofits. And so I went to the president of that organization and I said, you know what? I have lots of nonprofit experience. I can help you guys with whatever you need, and I will volunteer for any of your events. You just tell me what I could do. And the president was Chuck Alsup. He was so kind, and he said, "You know what, Megan? You come to all of our events. Why don't you come and volunteer at the like reception at the like sign-in table registration for these events," which was so brilliant on his part because I got to know everybody. Everybody in the industry came to those events, and I got to know who they were, and they got to know who I was. And that was how I got my first job in the intelligence community. Ellen McCarthy gave me my first job working for her. And that's where I finally got to make my first big pivot from nonprofits to the intelligence community, working at a government contractor. And that's when I realized, while I was doing that, I kind of fell into this group of amazing supportive women, where I, along with Ellen and some other women, Tish Long, Carmen Medina, some very senior, fabulous women in the intelligence community, we co-founded an organization called the Amazing Women of the IC. And we did that at nighttime while we were all still working. And like you, so fast forward, I did that. I ran that for about 5 years. And during COVID, that was an organization that was very much in person. We did events and, workshops and happy hours and all of that stuff. But when COVID happened, all of that stopped, right? And at that time, I also kind of passed on to the new generation of young women the leadership of AWIC. And one of the women came to me and said, look, there is, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. I think a lot of people started to do that during COVID. And there's a gap in the market in our industry where there are lots of great podcasts in the intelligence community, but they're all topical. So, for example, Intelligence Matters. It's a great intelligence podcast, but it's focused on the topics of the day, right? Russia and Ukraine, or it'd be Israel and Hamas. It would be very much topical, and it wasn't really touching on the people of the IC. And since my focus has always been women, Katie, my co-founder, and I founded Iron Butterfly Podcast, where we interview the women of the intelligence community and we tell their stories about who they are. And we did it as a fun project, and we didn't think it was going to be as big as it has become. And fast forward, it has become required listening at universities. We're being, we have built off of that. We have produced and directed the first documentary on women in the intelligence community that hopefully will be finished this coming summer in 2024. And we've built Iron Butterfly Media around it. So that was our next pivot. What I like to say is, and Katie does too, we had our side hustles, right? We all had our full-time jobs, but we had our passions at night, right? And so my passion was women in the intelligence community. We founded AWIC Then we founded Iron Butterfly. Now built Iron Butterfly Media, all as side hustles. And the goal for us was making our side hustle our full time job. And that's what we've
Yeah.
done. So
Yeah.
sorry, that was really long winded, but I had a couple of pivots along the way, and I hope that kind of explains them a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. And I love that you did provide so much detail, because I know that a lot of people who are listening, people are going to be at different phases in their life. And some people may be new to their careers and really, focused on the trajectory they're on. But we all change, right? If we're lucky enough to get older, right? Our priorities change. What we want to invest in changes, and at some point we make a pivot, whether it's within the same industry, moving up, or doing some things. Most people, or changing industries, like most people are going to make some kind of pivot. And I love you being able to share the journey of what your pivots looked like, because it says to somebody else it's possible, right? If she,
100%.
why can't I? So that's really, that kind of leads us into my next question for you around leadership. Did it sounds like you sort of had this focus on the intelligence community, and you knew that you wanted to drive at that, and then you sort of shifted along the way. But did you always sort of have an innate sense that you would be a leader at something, whether it was in the intelligence community, or the head of this media organization, association management, like whatever it was? Did you feel that sense that you'd be a leader? Is it something you aspire to?
I love that question because I think what people would say about me and what I say about myself is different. So I think what other people would say about me is, "Oh yeah, of course Megan was a leader. Like I always saw her leading." And I would say to that, to them saying that I think everybody is a leader. You can lead whether you are entry level, whether you are a mid career, whether you're a senior, you're always leading. And so just because you don't have a team of 20 doesn't mean that you're not a leader.
Mhm.
So I'll put that aside. What I would say about myself was I never aspired to be like the CEO or the president or the director, right? I loved supporting those people. I loved being in the background, getting stuff done. That's what people know. I think that's what I'm known for, as Megan gets shit done. And
I love it.
through that, I have been lucky, and I use that lucky and blessed. I use those two words specifically to have seen good and bad leaders. And the reason why I say I'm lucky and blessed to have had bad leaders is because I don't think you truly can be a good leader unless you have had both experiences, unless you have seen what it's like to work for a good one and seen what it's like to work for a bad one. And I think it just now having my own company, I don't even, I still guess I don't see myself as a leader. I see myself as a collaborator. Like everything we do, we're collaborating. Um, and so, no, I never saw myself that way. It just, I guess, I did always know what I wanted. And I always knew that I needed to, for me, it was just working hard, showing up, and making sure I did a good job.
Yeah.
And, and then couple that with, I care about people. I think people, that's what you should be focusing on. Sometimes I know companies are about the bottom line, but nonprofits, to some extent, yes, they have their mission, but they also kind of have a bottom line to their sponsors and whoever's
Absolutely.
supporting them. But really, it's all about people. And
Yeah,
so
totally.
I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I got for you.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. No, and I guess, one of the things that I always think about when we're talking about so where people are now, whether they had any sense that they would be in a leadership role or in the place that they are serving, because I think, servant leadership is a big thing. Um, is preparation, right? And what they did, that's sort of why I wanted to know if you ever sensed it, so that you'd be in a leadership role. So were you intentional? I guess what I'm driving at is, were you
Mhm.
intentional in your preparation? Because there is Coursera did a recent study that talked about, or projected, I should say, that in 2024 leadership training is going to be the most in demand thing that people are looking for in terms of career advancement and
Yeah.
preparing for their next moves, right? And so I want to know, like, kind of what your journey was on that. Like, did you do things to prepare for where you are now? When you knew you were going to start AWIC and then you pivoted to start Iron Butterfly, did you
Mhm.
start taking podcast class? Like, did you, like,
Yeah.
was there anything
Yes.
in particular that you did to
So,
prepare yourself?
it's so funny because when you say that, uh, then I'm like, oh, yeah, of course I did all of those things. But I don't consider that in my head. I'm like, that's just, of course you have to do that. Right.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I don't realize that in that people look at that as like leadership. Right.
yeah.
Um, and So, but oh my goodness, yes. So from the beginning, I can just say, like I said earlier, I wanted to be in the intelligence community, but I wasn't working there, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to the industry nonprofit and said, I was strategic about that. I went to them and I said, I want to volunteer with you. I could have volunteered anywhere, right? I could have
Mm,
given my time anywhere, but I knew that was what my passion was. It wasn't just about getting a job. That was my passion. That was what I wanted. So I was
yeah.
strategic about giving my extra time to that. And everything since then, I've been very strategic about giving my people always ask me, how do you do all the different things, right? You had a full time job, and then you had like three things you were doing on the side as a side hustle. And then you have a family, you have a husband and a son, and you have three dogs and family and all of that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I always say, yeah, but when you're doing stuff that you love, when you do the passion projects that you love, it doesn't feel like work, and it doesn't feel like you of course you find time. Of course
Yeah.
you just do. And as far as like preparation, I recommend, if your organization, company, wherever you work offers any type of professional development, education, even if you don't know if you're like really interested in it, take it. It's free. If
Mhm.
they're offering you negotiation, like a seminar on negotiation, take it. If
Mhm.
they're offering you a free class on whatever, like coding or whatever, if they're offering it, that's free. You should take it.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, I joke, when we were done with when we knew we wanted to level up from the podcast, and we were like, how do we do that? What do we want to do? And we decided we wanted to do a documentary. I joke, I didn't even know documentarian was a word until I started doing it. And the first thing we did was we reached out to four people in different areas. We reached out to a production company, someone that we kind of knew, who ended up being our production company for the movie. We reached out to a storyteller, a very well-known author in historical fiction, because she was a storyteller, and we wanted to ask her, how do you tell stories, right? We talked to an investigative reporter, because she does, hers are real stories, right? What should we be looking at? How should we build our arc? And yeah, but that's the fun part.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
learning something new. I guess for me, it doesn't seem like a leadership thing, because I I always want to keep learning, and I want, you know I want my mind to always be curious, and so for me, that's the fun part.
Yeah. I think, I think though that, it does definitely demonstrate leadership characteristics though, because I think about organizations that become stagnant over time. And
Mhm.
we've all been, at organizations, whether we were working with them, volunteering with them, doing business with them, that have become stagnant over time, and they develop that mindset of, oh, the way that we always do it, this is the way we've always done it. And it stems from people not having the type of mindset that you're describing. So I do think that being willing to be prepared for the next thing, and staying sharp on the current thing, definitely exhibits leadership, in many many ways. And I think that that's something that's amazing. I love hearing so much about your journey, because you are brave. I mean, I love what you said a minute ago about volunteering and going to this person in leadership, the CEO, and saying, hey, how can I volunteer, how can I help? Because a lot of people are afraid to do that. They may be members of an organization or somehow somewhere in the background, but they haven't stepped out to volunteer. And that could be for a variety of reasons. But I love you saying that that was your pathway in. And
Mhm.
and if it's something I would love for my listeners to take away from that, is not to be afraid, to take that step. And how did you do that? Like, because you're not like I've known you for a long time, and I don't you are not you're not really shy. I wouldn't call you shy. I don't think that's accurate. But you also are not the party starter. Like, you're
Mhm.
not going to be the person that bursts through the doors and you're like, hey, let's get it started. You're not that person either. Like, you're a very happy medium, right? So when I think about you doing that, I think it's incredibly brave. But I also would love for you to share with our listeners, kind of how you got beyond that bit of reservedness that you can have when you're first meeting people, until you warm up. How'd you get past that to really step into this community and not just ask this one person to volunteer, but even when you were volunteering, to introduce yourself, to get to know people, to
Mhm.
really make the most of that opportunity?
Well, first I wanna say I love that you know that about me because it tells that you're a real friend.
Yeah.
Because I think that is exactly how I would describe myself.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say that, I come from the Midwest. I'm from the Chicagoland area. We are
Ooh,
not known to Yeah, hey. Um, we are not known to be like self-promoters. We don't talk about we don't boast about our accomplishments or talk about our work. You go to a bar in Chicago, people are talking about Cubs, Sox, Bears, and maybe where you went to high school. Nobody cares about what you do for a living. So moving here was a culture shock because I wasn't like that. I didn't like to self-promote. And you actually do have to do that when you're looking for a job, you have to
Yeah.
self-promote.
Yeah.
It's the name of the game. And so what I did, which I really encourage others who are like me or even more introverted or shy than I am, is that you find a buddy. And I found a woman who was from the Midwest like me, who was
Mhm.
trying to enter the community that I was, just like me. And so we used to go to the events together. And it is really hard for me to say, I'm Megan Jaffer and I went to school and did this and this is my background. But you know what? It was super easy to promote her. So I
Mhm.
would say, I'm not gonna call her out, but I'd say, this is Jane Doe. We'll call her Jane Doe. She
Mhm.
is amazing. She went to Georgetown at the security studies program, and she's looking for a job in analysis, and she went to the University of Iowa and blah blah blah. And I it was so easy for me to uplift and promote someone else, and then she would do the same for me. She would
Yeah.
say, "Oh, have you met my friend Megan? She lived in Korea for 5 years and studied Korean studies." And that was our way of kind of getting comfortable with kind of, it was almost like hearing her pitch about me made me more comfortable with my own pitch, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so um, that was how we initially did it. And honestly, it just takes, I know people don't want to hear this, especially, people just entering, but it takes practice. You have
Yeah.
to, I remember going into interviews and feeling super, I would have all the butterflies, my stomach would hurt, like you would feel all kinds of stuff. But I started to understand, I don't know if it comes with age or experience or just doing a lot of them,
Mhm.
that I also hold power, right? So, like,
Absolutely.
yes, they're interviewing me, but I'm interviewing them too. Do I want to be a part of their organization? Yes, they need to know if I'm the right fit for that job, but I also need to figure out, am I the right fit for their team or their organization or their company? And
Yeah.
so I think it's just practice and
Yeah.
just feeling, yeah, you might have to go to 10, 20 different happy hours to like really feel good about your elevator pitch. But that's okay. That's what they're
Yeah.
for. And
Yeah.
take a buddy, have them come
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's such good advice. And what advice would you give to women who are who want to create, who want to start something and just don't know where to start. Like they want to found something. What is there any advice that you have, any tips, any suggestions, things that you wish you'd known before you stepped into this space?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And there's so much. I would say kind of what I said previously, a little bit earlier in the podcast, which is starts. You don't have to make big leaps. You can start small. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to found an organization, a company, or you just want to do some side gig on the side where you're making cupcakes and selling them, or like you're sewing, cute kids clothes and you're selling them on the side. It doesn't matter. Start small, do it as a side hustle, do it however much time you have available. And if it's your passion, you'll give however much time you have, right? And then you kind of build from there. Number two is, I think there's a misconception that it is like super hard to start a LLC or a company. And I'm here to tell you, it is actually so easy, it's scary. I
Yeah.
mean, you can go on LegalZoom and for a couple $100 and 30 minutes,
Mhm.
literally, you
Mhm.
can start an LLC or a nonprofit.
Yeah.
A nonprofit takes maybe 45 minutes, but it's
Yeah,
still
it's a little
like,
more complicated. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it is not hard, and I would say find someone. I mean, we created a network of women in my space where we rely on each other, and so they can come to our AWIC events and find someone who has founded a small business or a company and say, "Hey, how did you do it?" Use
Yeah.
people that you know. Use your network. Hey, can I sit
Yeah.
down with you for 30 minutes? You can just tell me how you started.
Yeah.
And then number three is, once you do have that, man, it's like really tactical. But I wish I would have like found the resources and the money to hire a lawyer and accountant up front, because I wasted so much time the first year doing things where I could have, and doing things, and in some cases doing them wrong, and then having to hire these people to fix it, then just having, you can find reasonable attorneys and accountants and CPAs that'll do things for you on the cheap, because there are single mothers, single fathers that are doing their own side gigs that are willing to take you on as a client, and for like for not a lot, you can do it. And I
Yeah.
wish I would have known that, because I we wasted a lot of time the first year, where I wish I would have had them up front, because it just would have not, I wouldn't have had so many headaches.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Look, I feel your pain. Yes, I completely understand that. Have the same story. We could talk at length about that. But yeah, I think you're right. It's just starting. And I love that. That is your message. I love when you say something for my listeners, Megan. And I'm surprised, like you haven't said it yet, but this is your mantra, that women are creators,
Yep.
right? And I love that, because this podcast is specifically, I don't think that my listeners probably are only women, but this is a podcast that is targeted and geared toward women. We want to tell the stories of women in leadership who are doing great things to inspire other women to do great things. And that's one thing that I am witnessing. As the more women that I talk with, I am just amazed at the time that people are finding to pursue their passions with already full plates. So I 100% agree with everything that you said. And one of the things, Megan, that I admire most about you is that you have, for the entire length of time that I've known you, which has been now over a decade, is that you have had just a truly compassionate heart. Like you definitely have a spirit of giving, and you always want to help others be better. That's something that I have always seen in you. And I'm curious how your leadership role at Iron Butterfly has helped you do that. Have you ever taken a step back and been like, oh my God, like I'm seeing where I'm able to make a difference here? Like, have you had those moments?
Yeah. I I'm afraid to talk because I think I might cry. Because I would say, my co-founder, Katie Naquin Hopkins, that's another misconception, that you cannot, don't do business with friends, or don't, you can't have a real partnership with someone in business, because, it always fails. I can't tell you how many people told me that before we did this.
Mhm.
And I think we are going to redefine that, because I'm telling you, she teaches me stuff all the time. And she, I think I'm a compassionate person, but she makes me even more compassionate, and makes me see things that I don't see. And she's good at things that I'm not. That's why we're such a good partnership.
Yeah.
And you know, what has happened where I've taken a step back, I really try to do this a lot. And with the podcast specifically, you know, I said this earlier, we didn't, well, I will speak for myself, because Katie says that she always knew it was going to be a big deal. But I, I thought it was just a fun project we were doing, right?
Yeah.
And it, even to this day, it shocks me when people come up to me and say, or they DM me and they say, this this story made a difference. This episode made a difference in my life, and this is why. This podcast that you're doing shaped the way I thought about something, or I changed my career and I went to
Mhm.
intelligence after listening to your episodes.
Yeah.
And it really makes, we are very thoughtful in our guests and who we choose and the stories we're telling, but
Yeah.
it makes me even really internalize, like, whoa, what are we putting out into the world? What are we trying to do, right? What are we trying to um, what do we want people to take away? And that's where our values at Iron Butterfly Media come into play. And our Values are authenticity, belief, and love. That's
Mm,
and everything comes from that.
yeah.
And from even working with sponsors and all of that, if they don't fit into that value system, then we don't do it. That's
Yeah.
our first and last question we ask ourselves when we are partnering with anyone, when we are inviting people. Do they fall into authenticity, belief, and love? And if they don't, then we don't work with them. And that's something that I have, you know, I kind of feel like we have a luxury of doing that, but all leaders have that luxury, right? They
Yeah.
get to choose how they do business and how they lead. And
Yeah.
we are choosing to lead that way.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, that's so inspirational. Yeah, that's and it's a really good. That's something that I will take with me as a business owner, as someone also who is stepping into this new venture with leadership bites. I think just holding fast to your values, because I think, I've seen it with other people that lots of opportunities will come your way. And there's always the temptation to run with the money or to run with
Mhm.
the opportunity. But you've got to make sure that it fits your vision, it fits who you are, and where you're trying to go, and the mark that you want to leave on the world. And which is, I think, more important than ever
Can I
right
just say with that,
now.
because I have we Katie and I have the most amazing supporter, mentor, friend in Sue Gordon, who was the former principal deputy director of national intelligence, and she really when we first started getting a lot of traction, and I won't call out the organization, but we had one of the three letter agencies come to us
Yeah.
and say, "Oh, we love what you're doing. Can we kind of partner?" But what they were really asking is, "Can you give us your content and we're going to use
Mm,
it?"
yeah,
And it was, you know, when we first had the call, we were like, "Holy cow! People like this organization. They like us, right? And they want to use our stuff. That's awesome." And
yeah,
we went and talked to Sue, and she said that's what she said. She said, "Does it fit into your values? Is it, you know, i- think about what those values are." I don't know if we really had defined them at that point.
yeah.
And she said, "And if it doesn't, and it doesn't serve you, then it's a no."
Mm,
And after we did the exercise, we realized it didn't serve us. And it could have easily gone the other way, where you're like, "Oh, we got this notoriety, we can give them,"
yeah,
and we realized it didn't fit in our value system. And so
yeah,
I thank Sue for that, because she was the one who made us go through that exercise. And
yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Some time ago, I read a book. Oh my God, it's been years ago now, called The Purpose Driven Life.
Mhm.
And I can't remember who the author was. I want to say it's a guy by the name of Rick Whalen. Forgive me, listeners, if I'm wrong, but the book is definitely called A Purpose Driven Life. And I and that book made such a profound mark on me. And that's sort of where I appreciate hearing your story, and I am being inspired even as I'm listening to your story, because that is what I aspire to do, is live a purpose driven life. Like, I work, I call it a passionate 9 to 5, because
Mhm.
I'm, in the association management community, as you know, Megan, it's where I met you, and I'm doing work that I love there. So it is not, it is, it's work, but it is a labor of love, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I love what I do, but I also have things, dreams, visions, ideals that expand beyond my 9 to 5, and things that I want to do personally to live a purpose driven life, like within the purpose that I believe I'm here for. And this is one of them. So I am so excited to have heard about your journey, and have you share that with our listeners, because I hope and I believe that they will be as inspired by what you and Katie have achieved, and are achieving, as I have been. And to that note, I'd love to ask you, what is the future of Iron Butterfly? What's the focus to keep your pushing your vision forward? I know earlier in the podcast you talked about, having just completed a documentary. Tell us about that. Are there other things that you have on the horizon that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so there are really three things that are our main focus right now. So we are expanding our podcast. So up until we just finished our fifth season yesterday. Actually,
Yay!
it was our
Congratulations.
season finale, and
Yeah.
up until this point, it was all audio only.
Mhm.
And we have been able to invest in building out our studio so that season six will be audio and visual. I
Mm.
am really happy that we started audio only,
Yeah.
because it let us own our craft a little, and
Yeah.
now we can graduate and have that visual ability, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah.
We were able to do that because up until this season we did this, we had we were very lucky that we early on partnered with the National Security Institute, where because we didn't have the funds to, it costs money to edit and it costs money to host these podcasts on platforms, and we
Yes.
didn't have that. We weren't ready to do sponsorships, and so the National Security Institute at George Mason allowed us to. They provided the editing capability. They provided the hosting ability so that we could do everything else.
Mm.
And we have now graduated, and we are accepting sponsorships, but in a new way. Um, we are we are not just doing the traditional model where you have a podcast and then you say sponsored by, name
Mhm.
your company.
Yeah.
What we're doing is staying true to our values,
Mhm.
and we are asking that each sponsor give us one or two women in their company that we could highlight at the beginning of the episode. So let's say we'll just call it Rainbow Butterfly Company, right? They
Yeah.
sponsor an episode, they get a minute 30, 2 minutes at the beginning of the episode for a woman they would like to highlight to tell her story, and
Mhm.
also, highlight their company. And so it stays true with what we're trying to do, which is tell the stories of as many women as possible, right? And so
Yeah.
that has allowed us, that sponsorship model allowed us to build out our studio, to have enough money to do that. We've been able to build our team. As far as the movie is concerned, we finished filming in July. We are in post production now. That is the most time consuming and unfortunately the most expensive. We're still
Yeah.
raising money so we could finish it, hoping to finish in the summer so that we could submit to the film festivals, the documentary film festivals in the fall.
And a little birdie says that you're getting some interest even from some streaming platforms already on that. That is
So we
so
are,
yeah.
we've gotten offers for them to purchase it now, and we have said no because we want to finish it
All right.
with what we have. We want to complete it from soup to nuts. They can have,
Yeah.
we are, of course, we would love for them to pick it up after it's done, but we want to finish it first.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Oh, another thing with the podcast is we've expanded. Now we have an umbrella. We're going to have an umbrella of podcasts. Our second podcast, which will be on women in the military, is going to launch in the summer of 2024 with the
Okay.
host, Sarah Scully. And we're hoping to add at least one more under our banner next year.
All right.
And then we have our foundation, which is a 501c3. And you spoke about it brilliantly. It's uplifting the voices and providing resources for women creators. And we are, we're taking our time with the foundation, really trying to build that out. Our chairwoman, Suzanne Heckenberg, along with our team, are really, we're hoping to have a couple of programs next year in 2024. So that's more to come, but we're really being kind of um, thoughtful in how we're building that out. So that's kind of the short term goals, I guess, of Iron Butterfly.
Well, that is a lot. That is exciting. Congratulations on everything. Like I am so excited and inspired by your journey, and I want my listeners to be able to follow you on that journey if they would like to do so. So, how can people find you and learn more about Iron Butterfly?
Sure. So we are on link. We're very active on LinkedIn. So you can find me, Megan Jaffer. You can go to Iron Butterfly Media on LinkedIn. You also can go to Iron Butterfly Podcast.
Mhm.
We are on Instagram as well, and our website is ironbutterflymedia.com. And there is lots of information, really cool photos and videos on there. We also have we have a merch store, which is so exciting.
I love it.
um, we encourage people, if you like us and you buy our merch, to tag us. We have Mondays, we do I Spy Iron Butterfly posts, and so we love seeing people in our merch. But yeah, that's how you can find us. And we love hearing from people. So, if you want to, DM us, you also, our contact information is on the website. But yeah, we'd love to hear from people.
All right. So, everyone, you heard it here. Go check out Iron Butterfly. Follow them on social media, support their work. It's all about uplifting women. And I promise you, you're going to hear some good stories. You're going to hear some inspirational stories. You're going to feel empowered along the way. And so, we definitely want to support that. We support all things, all people in general, but all things women. And Megan, so thank you so much for joining me today. It has truly been a pleasure. I appreciate you and all the light and the love and the inspiration that you are bringing to the world. And thank you for sharing that with us today as well. Thanks, everyone. Until next time.